Like a farmer after a good harvest, I can look back on this release week at the fruits of my labor, aka going through albumoftheyear.com looking for names I recognize on the release schedule. Still, there are many amazing albums that came out this week that I want to point your way. But before we get into the music, I actually have an exciting announcement. And that's if you can't get enough of me here, you can go over to lineofbestfit.com and check out my profile. I'm really thrilled to have that platform to share my love of music on. I already have 3 reviews up linked down below, so go and check them out. Now, getting back to the music, here are some of my favorite albums that came out this week. Of every musical trend in the underground of the past couple years, definitely the most fascinating to me has been this European post-punk invasion, consisting of acts like Viagra Boys, Squid, BCNR, Black Midi, Shame, just to name a few. And definitely the most interesting part of this very groove-heavy, melodramatic movement is seeing the way each group progresses in this sort of divergent evolution. Black Midi have embraced prog rock and cabaret, BCNR seem to crash Kate Bush and post-rock into each other like a child smashing toys together, but Squid have always been the black sheep of this family, and that's due in part to the fact that their sound is a little hard to describe. Maybe some sort of global, futuristic Talking Heads, so Talking Heads. But there's always been something very bassy and angular and alienating too about their music, so Talking Heads. They seem the most out of all of their peers to focus on groove and energy, while at the same time brewing this sort of Hail to the Thief era Radiohead energy underneath the surface. Their big debut came out in 2021, Bright Green Field, and while it was a fantastic record, it was up against stiff competition from slightly more popular acts in the field like Black Midi and BCNR. But they've continued down their evolution to O Monolith by simply pruning some thorns in their sound and making everything cohere a little bit better. The 8 songs in 40 minutes that O Monolith runs at is a pretty watertight track list without much in the way of lull. The grooves are fantastic and organically grow into these hulking monstrosities. They're fit with angular synths, off-kilter bass lines, and yelpy vocals just like always, but here more than ever, they have such a greater sense of melody than they used to. Nearly every track has a catchy sung chorus and experimental vocals laced into the builds. Just like their last record, there's a lot of political intrigue beneath the surface that really contributes to this sense of unease. It really feels like any track could break out into a gunfight at any time. As someone who's really been rooting for Squid in this post-punk war, it's really gratifying to hear them find new ways to reach these instrumental highs and grow, especially on their best release yet. Another one of my favorite records of the year so far is this very minimalist country pop gem, Time Ain't Accidental by Jess Williamson is the name, and this is really just a case of everything that makes a record great being so surface level that I would probably have to tell certain friends of mine to not try to go out with it. The sonic world of this record is so beautifully confined and compact. It's really just a campfire burning applewood, indelibly comforting. Percussion is soft and sparse, electronics are organic and radiate and pulse in the mix. It is really a flatbed truck to sit and listen to nuggets of wisdom over. And Jess meets this simple construction with very heart-wrenching, life-ruiningly sad songs. It gets to the point that every chord change on Penultimate Ballad, I'd Come to Your Call, is reason enough for sick leave from work and a therapy appointment. The opener, which is also the title track, showcases every charm you're sure to witness listening to this record. Jess's foggy twang, a beautiful hook, smart lyrics, everything there is to love is unmissable and unbendable. This is a sublime, concretely written singer-songwriter record that is just very unmistakably the best of her career. There is knowing your way around a tune, being able to shape it into whatever you need to accomplish, but then there's the ability to imbue every track with every possible meaning the listener might take from it, to bridge over from relatable to personally prophetic, and Jess handles this track for track. Time Ain't Accidental is a clinic in empathetic storytelling, emotion, and ironclad songwriting. It's definitely my favorite singer-songwriter record of the year so far. It's tragically fitting that an artist who for years has been on the precipice of groundbreaking art to also be at this very unfortunate, tumultuous crossroads in their life. This is a time of incomprehensible mourning for Redcar due to the passing of his mother, but also of the positive extremes in his life as well due to his recent coming out. This is the contradictory but fertile ground on which the record grows, this intersection where life and death seem to burst at the seams and reveal opportunity and growth inside pain. To back up, Redcar is a pop savant who, since the release of his 2018 album Chris, has really positioned himself in the strike zone for a great brush with perfection. Williamson. More than almost any other artist, Redcar's gutsy voice and bold, forward-thinking approach to pop have kept him center stage as an artist on the verge of cosmic breakthrough. And while La Vida Nueva in 2020 may very well be the best EP of the decade, mark my words, I've been waiting for a full release to really encompass this galaxy-sized energy and persona and mystery of Redcar. And after last year's middling return where he reintroduced himself as Redcar, this year's Paranoia Angel's True Love really shows how much of an unnecessary detour that record was. This record here is really a case of getting what you needed over getting what you wanted. Instead of a masterpiece in the form of pop perfection, this is a masterpiece by way of winding electronic and rock passages, aggressively mid-paced ballads, in an atmosphere that instead of sounding futuristic and compact, feels sunburnt to a crisp in hell and sent back to heaven for inspection. This is surprisingly one of the most oppressive records that I've heard in multiple years, not to mention that it is a gargantuan triple album that runs at 1 hour and 40 minutes. No expense was spared in taming these emotions for Redcar. Kanye West collaborator Mike Dean co-produces this record, and 070 Shake and Madonna actually have multiple feature credits throughout the project. This is a galaxy-sized album with a military defense budget to spend, and it sounds like it. On top of overblown, sludgy percussion, quaint 808s, and space-agey synths, every single one of the 20 tracks here tries its hand at emanating the afterlife, building slowly into massive walls of strings, guttural harmonies, and sometimes even clipping walls of drums. If it's meant to sound like a funeral march, then it has been generalized to the death of all things, and I think that's what I love most about this project. Much like how songs deep into the tracklist radiate this exhausted bliss, where the record has worn you down so far that a feeling of liberation is washing over you, Redcar wisely finds hope in this point of transition. If, in grief, you can imagine that feeling as a tidal wave of cosmic wind battering the world and encompassing everything, it can be just as peaceful as moving on. To imagine this feeling of great personal destruction as something that is going through the motions, as something that is natural and eternal, it can be a great reliever of stress and personal identity in those times of crises. Just like this record which depicts it, a moment of transition, a loss, a crossroads, these show that emotional highs and lows are not diametric opposites, but exist in tandem. To find one, tunnel inside the other. In the midst of all of these distorted soundscapes and pain, choral vocals and true love are on the horizon. This is the creation that Redcar has been positioning himself for his entire career, and I can't wait to live with this very spectral, haunting album and ape off of its wisdom. Reading an old quote from Redcar about his favorite album of the 2010s being Yeezus by Kanye West, it not only draws that connection to his usage of Mike Dean here, but also sort of implies the way they might be operating now. He stated that he admired how volcanic and unafraid and bold the music of Yeezus was. And here, on his own vulnerable, cataclysmic statement, he's really pushed forward an art form that he has been dominating for the past 10 years. It is cosmic love and loss, the sum total of a life being strewn out for consumption. And those were my favorite albums of this week. Let me know what you think of them, and let me know what you think of all of the other records that I've covered on this channel. Links to all of my social media where I post more often, including my Line of Best Fit profile, are down below in the description. And this is the end, until it's not.